You ever have one of those mornings where the world feels right, the coffee's hot, the sunrise is painting the fields gold, and then somebody decides to crash into your life like a bull in a china shop? That's how it started for me. The day Lisa, in her shiny, overpriced SUV, slammed into the iron gate of my ranch, out here on the edge of Willow Creek, Montana. The sound of metal screeching against metal hit like a thunderclap, and I just stood there, mug in hand, staring out from my porch, thinking, what in the actual hell is happening? I'm Jake, by the way, born and raised on this land, 200 acres of rolling hills, grazing cattle, and a big OL cottonwood tree that's been standing guard by my gate since my granddad's time. That gate? It's not just iron bars, it's a line in the sand, a boundary that says this is mine, my family's, our history carved into every fence post and blade of grass. But Lisa didn't see it that way. She was the queen bee of the Pine Hollow Homeowners Association, a suburban empire of manicured lawns and mailbox regulations that had somehow crept too close to my world. She climbed out of her SUV, heels sinking into the dirt, face redder than a barn in a storm, screaming through the bars like I'd personally insulted her entire existence. This gate's illegal, Jake. You're blocking HOA access. You're in violation. I just leaned against the porch rail, sipping my coffee, letting her words bounce off me like rain on a tin roof. Violation? Lady, this land's been in my family since before your HOA was a twinkle in some developer's eye. She went on, waving papers, claiming her HOA had jurisdiction over my ranch, that my cattle were unapproved livestock, that the rusty red paint on my gate wasn't in her color palette. I swear, it was like watching a one-woman play, all fury and no logic. My neighbor Tom, who'd wandered over at the sound of the crash, chuckled under his breath, and that just set her off more. You think this is funny? She shrieked, pointing at him like he'd stolen her crown. I'll have you fined too. By now, a few ranch hands and neighbors had gathered, drawn by the noise, and I could see them biting back grins. I set my mug down, walked to the gate, slow and steady, boots crunching gravel, and looked her square in the eye. Lisa, I said, calm as a summer breeze. You ever check who actually owns this land? That stopped her, just for a second, her mouth flapping like a fish out of water before she doubled down, yelling about bylaws and emergency orders. But I saw it in her eyes, a flicker of doubt, like maybe she'd bitten off more than she could chew. That was the start of it, the spark that lit a fire I didn't see coming. Lisa wasn't just some annoyed neighbor, she was a woman on a mission, fueled by a mix of pride, control, and some deep-seated need to bend the world to her will. The next week, she called an HOA meeting at the community center, strutting in with binders like they were the Constitution, preaching about how I was a rogue squatter, a threat to property values, a cowboy outlaw sipping coffee, and plotting chaos. My buddy Sam, who went to watch the show, said she pounded the podium so hard a water bottle flew off, and half the room was stifling laughs. She waved maps she'd drawn herself, stretching HOA boundaries like taffy to include my ranch, claiming my barn needed to be earth-toned to match the neighborhood aesthetic. Earth-toned? My barn. The one my dad built with his own hands. Sam said an old-timer in the back laughed so hard he nearly fell out of his chair, and Lisa snapped, "You're out of order," like she was running a courtroom. But the room wasn't buying it, not fully. They'd signed up for potlucks, not a witch hunt. Me? I stayed quiet, biding my time. I had the deed, notarized and older than Lisa's entire subdivision, locked in my safe. I had survey maps, tax records, photos of my granddad leaning against that cottonwood tree. I didn't need to shout, I had truth, and truth don't need to raise its voice. But Lisa? She kept pushing. She planted signs on my land, crooked, sloppy things that said HOA property in dripping paint. I pulled them up, stacked them by my barn like trophies. She sent her lackeys to spy on my cattle with clipboards, like my cows were committing crimes by chewing grass. One time, I waved at him from horseback, tipped my hat real polite, and the poor guy dropped his clipboard in the mud and ran. It was funny, sure, but it was starting to wear on me. Her obsession was spooking my herd, setting my dogs barking at night. Still, I held my temper, knowing she was digging her own grave. Then came the day she went full Christopher Columbus, hammering a post into the dirt by my gate, with a little HOA flag flapping on top. I watched from the fence, arms crossed, and called out, You annexing my ranch now, Lisa? Gonna claim it for the HOA empire. Her face went purple, hair coming loose from her perfect bun, and she screamed that this land was hers by association authority. I snapped a photo, told her the town would love to see her little stunt, and she bolted back to her SUV, leaving that sad flag flapping in the wind. I laughed so hard my sides hurt, but deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Lisa wasn't the type to quit, she was the type to burn everything down before admitting she was wrong. So I decided to flip the script. I threw a party, not to rub it in her face, but to show folks what community really looks like. No bylaws, no threats, just good food, music, and open gates for anyone who wanted to come. I strung lights along the fence, set tables under the cottonwood, and had a local band play some bluegrass. Neighbors showed up, kids ran wild, and the smell of smoked brisket filled the air. It was perfect until Lisa's SUV rolled up. She didn't even get out at first, just sat there, headlights glaring like she was plotting a siege. Then she stormed to the gate, sequins flashing like she'd dressed for a gala, grabbed the bars, and started yelling about unauthorized gatherings and noise violations. The band faltered, then leaned into it, weaving her voice into the rhythm like she was part of the song. I walked over, hands up like I was surrendering, and said, "What? Lisa, you want an invite for your board members too?" The crowd roared, and even the deputy, munching ribs by the fence, raised his plate like a toast. Her face went crimson, and she swore she'd call the sheriff. Never mind, he was right there, shaking his head at her. She stood there an hour, pacing, shouting, but nobody cared. We kept dancing, eating, laughing, and eventually she drove off, tail between her legs. That night felt like a win, not just for me, but for everyone who'd had enough of her nonsense. But Lisa wasn't done, she was just getting started. She took it to the courthouse, filing a complaint packed with every violation she could dream up: illegal parties, hazardous livestock, you name it. Her letters hit mailboxes across town, typed in all caps like ransom notes. I got mine hand-delivered by some nervous guy who wouldn't look me in the eye. I read it slow, sipping coffee, chuckling at the insanity. Willful obstruction of community enjoyment? Really? She strutted into the hearing in a red suit, her lawyer waving papers like a magician, claiming I was a danger to society. I stood up, calm as ever, and laid out my case. The deed, the surveys, photos of my family on this land for generations. The judge's frown deepened with every page, and by the time I was done, Lisa's lawyer was sweating, her smug grin fading. The gavel came down, and her case was tossed out like yesterday's trash. You'd think that'd be the end, but wounded pride's a dangerous thing. Lisa came back, wilder than ever, leaving notes under my gate, circling my land at night, her headlights flashing like some creepy predator. Then came the storm, a real one, rolling in with black clouds and lightning that lit up the sky like a war zone. I was on my porch, watching the rain hammer down, when I heard her SUV roar up, tires slipping in the mud. She didn't slow down, she floored it, slamming into the gate with a crash that shook the ground. Steam hissed, metal groaned, and she stumbled out, soaking wet, screaming through the bars like the storm was her backup band. "This land's mine, Jake. You'll regret this," she yelled, pounding the iron. I just stood there, arms crossed, rain dripping off my hat, thinking, "Lady, you're fighting nature now." She got back in, gunned the engine, and hit the gate again harder. That's when it happened. The cottonwood, old and battered by years of storms, groaned, cracked, and came down with a thud that shook my soul, pinning her SUV under its branches. Silence hit, heavy as the rain, her horn bleeding once before dying out. I ran out, mud sucking at my boots, and found her trapped inside, pounding the window, cursing me, the storm, the world. She wasn't hurt, just caged, her pride as stuck as her SUV. I called the fire department, and they came fast, chainsaws buzzing, neighbors gathering under umbrellas to watch. They cut her free, still screaming about lawsuits, but the crowd just stared, some chuckling, some shaking their heads. The tree had spoken, and Lisa's war was over. The next morning, the ranch was quiet, sunlight spilling over the wreckage. Neighbors helped clear the branches, turning chaos into firewood, and I planted a new cottonwood by the gate, a promise to the future. Lisa tried one last stand, marching up alone, shouting about appeals and revenge, but nobody listened. Her HOA fell apart, meetings stopped, and the town moved on, laughing about the woman who thought she could bully a ranch. Looking back, sitting on my porch with my dogs, watching that new tree sway, I think about pride, how it can blind you, drive you to ram gates in a storm, or make you think you can rewrite history. I didn't win because I shouted louder. I won because I stood my ground, let truth do the talking, and let Lisa burn herself out. But sometimes I wonder what makes someone like her keep fighting when she's already lost. What do you think? Have you ever dealt with someone who wouldn't quit, no matter how wrong they were? Drop a comment, share your story. I'd love to hear it.